You're ready to start your debt-free journey, but where to begin? When I first started my debt-free journey in 2017, I was so set on paying off my student loans. That was my focus, right? I was I'm paying off these student loans and nothing else matters. All this was fine until I started to witness high turnover at the startup where I was working at and realized any second I could, decide this isn't for me, or I could be fired and I had no safety net to fall back on because I hadn't been saving. Every paycheck that I was getting was going towards my debt payoff and directly towards the student loans because I wanted to pay them off as quickly as possible. And I wasn't thinking about creating an emergency fund for these situations. And that experience made me realize I needed to reprioritize my financial goals. I know I wanted to pay off my student loans by a deadline that I had set for myself, but in reality, it made more sense to pivot just for a second so I could make sure another aspect of my life was getting attention. Paying off my debt was super important to me, and that was a goal that I was really working towards, but I also knew that I wanted to make sure that I wasn't putting myself in a situation that would require me to take high interest debt. So take on credit cards because I needed to pay for things that I didn't have money for because I hadn't saved for an emergency fund. When people ask me how they should be thinking about financial goals and prioritizing different goals that they have, I always say it depends on your personal situation. It depends on what you've already been able to do and what you already have access to. So the thing that does stay consistent is the way that I think about how you should set up goals. That always, stays the same. It just depends on when you enter. So obviously, the first thing that I want to make sure that everybody has is an emergency fund. Don't be like me who waited till I saw people getting fired from my company to say I need to take action. Create the savings buffer for yourself now, today, while you are at an advantage. The suggested amount for an emergency fund is 3 to 6 months of living expenses. This is your basic essentials to survive. This includes your food, your housing, any bills that you have to pay. What is that bare minimum amount? And what does that look like on a monthly basis, right? And 3 months is the minimum, 6 months is good, healthy mix. Of course, 3 months could sound intimidating for somebody to pay for, especially when you don't know what that number is. So really trying to understand, first of all, what do I need to survive on a monthly basis? And see how realistic it is for you to reach those 6 months or even the 3 months. And start small, right? It doesn't have to be 6 months right away. You can work your way to 3 months and then move on to the second step I will talk about in prioritizing your financial goals. But you really want to make sure that you have some buffer. Because even if you have just a month, that is better than having zero. At least you know that for a month you can wait to hear back from a job that you interviewed for, or you can wait to hear back from unemployment that you should be receiving. At least, you have something. So definitely create an emergency fund for yourself. And it might look differently for you than it does for me because we all have different bare minimums to survive on a monthly basis. So this is very personal to you. Make sure that you're working your way up to 6 months, but definitely create a savings buffer for yourself before you move on to any other financial goals that you have. Next, you want to tackle any high interest debt. This is a credit card, a car loan, all of these debts that are super high interest and really kind of not helping you achieve any progress because most of the money that you're paying towards it is going to the interest and not the principal. So pay these debts off first before moving on to any next goals. The one thing I will say, and the reason why I say tackle this after having an emergency fund, is because if you're focused too much on paying off this debt, paying off this credit card debt, and then an emergency happens and you don't have any cash for that emergency, you're going back to using that credit card. And the point is, You want to be paying off that credit card, not using it as an emergency fund because you don't have an emergency fund. This also means that you might have to put your 401k to the side for a little bit. The only time I will tell you to not do this like right after your emergency fund is if paying off all of your credit card or high interest debt is going to take several years and it's going to put you behind saving and investing for your retirement for a while. Because as we know, saving for retirement and investing in general, time is on your side. So when you have high interest credit card debt, like sure, I urge you to pay that off, have a plan for tackling that as soon as possible. But if you realize that even your most aggressive plan for tackling this debt is going to take you 10 years to pay off, like you don't want to put your investing and your future on hold until you get this paid off. And another thing I also want to add is if you're getting a match in your 401k from your employer, just invest the minimum to receive that match because that's essentially free money. It's a benefit your company is giving you. Take advantage of it. A lot of companies offer it and a lot of them don't. So if you happen to be at an employer that does, take advantage of it, even if it just means contributing enough to reach that match. This leads me into my next point, which is investing in your retirement. So as I mentioned with the high interest credit cards and loans and different debt, you want to make sure that you start investing because time is on your side. And if you know paying off your debt is going to take several years to complete, you don't want to jeopardize your future and the growth that your money could have had in that time. Of course, most of the time, your high interest rate will be a higher percentage interest rate that you're paying and actually might outweigh what you get in returns on your investment, but it's important for you to start, which is why it's my third financial goal on the list. There are many ways to invest in your retirement. If you have access to a 401k with a match, make sure that you're at least investing enough for that match. And even if you don't have a match, but your company offers a 401k, contribute to it because 401ks are a huge tax benefit for you, and you can put up to like $19,000 a year, which is a lot, I get it, into this account and then not have to worry about the tax till you withdraw it. But one important thing to find out about your 401k is if your company does any matching, find out what the vesting schedule is for that. That just means that some companies will say only after X amount of time being at this company or being a contributor to your plan, you will receive the money that has been matched to you. So you're not, just because you have a match doesn't mean you quit in 2 weeks, you're gonna get that match money. You might have to understand your vesting schedule. But a 401k is like the first step in your investing journey. It wasn't the case for me actually because my organization didn't have a 401k when I joined. So I decided to open a Roth IRA, which if that is also your case, that's another way to save for retirement. Open up a Roth, traditional retirement account, and do it yourself. Do it through your own way. The one thing that you will need to have to open these accounts is earned income. So if you don't have a job and you don't have earned income, you actually can't invest into these accounts. But I'll go into more detail in another video that I do on retirement accounts. The next thing on this money priorities list is paying off the low interest debt that you might have. So this could be like your student loan debt, your federal student loan debt if it's like under 6% or something like that, or your mortgage, which is even lower than that. The reason I recommend this after you've paid off the high interest debt, after you've started investing, is because if it's a low interest debt and a lot of student loan debt, especially if they're federal debt, is low. If this is the case, then your money could be working in better ways for you. You could be receiving better return if you were in an investment account or doing something else with your money. And you don't want to stall on any of your other goals because you are too focused on paying this small, low interest debt. I know a few people feel like it would be better if I just had no debt and I just want to get rid of all of my debt, and that's fine. If that's for you, if that's going to help your own state of mind, if that's going to make you feel better, then go for it. But if you also want to buy a house or have other goals that you want to work towards, you don't have to put that on hold just because you still have student loan debt or because you still have a mortgage. So it really depends on like what your attitude is towards having some kind of debt. Your debt tolerance level, there you go, what your tolerance level is for having debt. And finally, when you've completed all the other steps, you can start building your wealth. This could look like investing in a brokerage account and other things that aren't retirement accounts. This could be buying real estate and investing in real estate, becoming a real estate investor, being a landlord, house hacking. This could also be working towards an FU fund, which is more than 6 months of your necessary living expenses, and maybe work your way to 2 years of living expenses that you just want to have cash because you want to take a year off and travel. Whatever it is, that is this phase that comes after. And that should come after you've gotten rid of some debt, especially the high interest debt. You've started investing, you're creating an investment portfolio for yourself, and you have a good emergency buffer. Of course, there are a few caveats here, and that I already kind of touched upon them, but it's when your student loans or other low interest debt becomes something that takes several years for you to pay off, you might want to think about paying off debt while you also save for a down payment, right? So it doesn't need to be like everything goes into one goal. It could be like, I am going to make extra payments to my student loan debt, but I'm also going to save for a down payment on a house. You don't have to pick one or the other. These are just suggested priority list and items that you should be thinking about first. This is just a suggestion. Of course, you need to keep in mind like where you are in your financial journey and also where we are as an economy as a whole, right? And I think right now is a great testament to that. A lot of people had savings goals. I had a goal to save for a down payment. Some people had debt payoff dates, but now that we're kind of in limbo, not sure where businesses are going to go, not sure what businesses will be around in 6 months, I decided to pivot a little bit from my down payment goal to adding more to my emergency fund. I want to make sure that emergency fund is 8 months, fully funded, and I can support myself if something were to happen. Of course, I'm going to still be saving for that house, but most of that money is going to be diverted into my goal for an emergency fund. The thing to remember here is that you need to be flexible. Don't beat yourself up because you didn't reach a goal that you had set for yourself. If you didn't reach it because you had to pivot to saving for something else, that's fine. I actually started my debt-free journey in 2017, and my goal was to have all of my student loan debt paid off by the summer of 2018. So that was a year. And I didn't reach that goal because I decided to focus all of my money on saving for an emergency fund, having that emergency fund available to me in case something were to happen. And you know what? That wasn't the first time I changed my deadline for my debt payoff. I had to move it around another time because I wanted to save enough to actually be able to move out of my parents' basement into my own apartment. And I was still paying off my debt, but I wasn't putting all that money towards it. I was putting some money into my own place. And that's okay because life is going to throw a lot of different things at you, and you just need to be able to take it and pivot. Where do you go from here, right? As long as you understand that there's a list of things that you should be thinking about, you can see where you are in that list, where you stand, and decide for yourself what you're going to do next, what makes sense for you at this time. So that's pretty much it for my financial priorities list. If you felt like something should be moved around or you have another thing to add, make sure to put it in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe, like it, share this video with a friend. Let me know that you enjoyed it, and I will see you next time. Bye.